Imagine dedicating your entire life uh, to climbing a mountain. Like, you sacrifice your weekends, you ignore your health, you totally alienate your friends.
Right, because society promises you that the view from the top is, the ultimate reward.
Exactly. But now, imagine reaching that peak, just completely exhausted, only to realize the summit itself is a trapdoor.
Oh, man. It is a terrifying thought. I mean, we are so conditioned to believe in meritocracy.
We really are.
This whole idea that you are the architect of your own destiny and that your output is directly correlated to your input. Like, hustle culture is literally built on the promise that if you just push hard enough, you can, I don't know, reshape reality to fit your desires.
Well, today we are asking you to just suspend that belief. We're inviting you into this deep dive to explore a deeply provocative text that, frankly, completely flips the modern narrative of ambition on its head.
It really does.
Yeah.
It views our endless striving not as a virtue, but as a fatal glitch in how we live.
Yeah, and we are pulling from an essay written in December 2018 by an author named Shuifeng. It's an excerpt from a much larger philosophical work called The Cosmic Script and the Illusion of Success.
And the essay itself has a title that pulls zero punches. It's called Pushing People to Forge Ahead is Doing the Devil's Trick.
Which is just, wow, what a title.
I know, right? And we should be clear right out of the gate, the worldview presented in this text is extreme.
Very extreme.
Yeah, our goal here isn't to endorse this philosophy or, tell you to march in and quit your job tomorrow. We are simply reporting on and unpacking a perspective that fundamentally challenges the core assumptions driving the modern world.
Right.
The author is essentially suggesting that every motivational speaker, every career counselor, and every well-meaning parent urging a child to be somebody is actually pushing them toward a cliff.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to even begin to understand why the author thinks ambition is basically a death sentence, we have to grasp his foundational premise.
Which is a big one.
Yeah, he operates from a standpoint of absolute, uncompromising determinism. He calls it the cosmic script.
Right, the cosmic script. It's the bedrock of his entire argument. Because, when people usually talk about fate, they tend to use it as a comforting blanket for when things go wrong.
Like the old everything happens for a reason platitude.
Exactly. But Yufeng's concept is far more mechanical than that. He argues that every single detail of your life is a fixed data point in this unchangeable cosmic algorithm.
Unchangeable, like totally locked in.
Completely locked. The blessings you'll enjoy, the sins you'll commit, your exact net worth at any given age.
Wow.
Yeah, even the specific diseases you'll contract and the precise moment and manner of your death, it's all already written.
And the essay gets incredibly specific about this, too. Like, he writes that whether you're going to be a celebrated singer, a high-ranking politician, a brilliant scientist, an artist, a thief, or a beggar.
It's all decided.
Yeah, you don't get to bootstrap your way out of your assigned role. He even claims that the people you're going to fall in love with and the specific individuals you are destined to torture or be tortured by are just co-stars hitting their marks in your tragedy.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And he scales this determinism all the way up to the spiritual realm, too.
Right.
According to the text, who will achieve enlightenment and become a Buddha, who will become a demon, who is bound for heaven, and who is doomed to hell.
It's already done.
It is all decided long before the curtain even rises on your life. No one can rewrite the plot.
And to make this abstract idea tangible, he relies on some very grounded analogies from nature, which I found really interesting.
Oh, the cabbage one.
Yeah, the cabbage. For instance, if you plant a Chinese cabbage, you can fertilize it, you can water it, you can ensure it gets the perfect amount of sunlight.
And you'll get a very plump, healthy cabbage.
Exactly. But no matter what interventions you attempt, you cannot force that cabbage to become a lettuce. And the same goes for livestock. You can feed a sheep the most premium grain on earth, and it will become a massive fat sheep. But it will absolutely never turn into a cow.
Never. Because the underlying logic he is highlighting there is the immutability of innate programming.
Right.
You do not have to enroll a giraffe in a master class on how to grow a long neck.
That would be a weird master class.
Right. You don't have to hold a seminar teaching lions the optimal strategies for hunting zebras. And mice don't need a tutorial on digging holes. They just naturally operate according to their design.
So is this like a video game where we think we are playing an open world sandbox? You know, a game where we can wander anywhere, build anything, carve out our own unique story,
Yeah.
but we're actually trapped in a strictly coded rail shooter?
Yeah.
Like the scenery is rushing past us, we have our hands on a plastic steering wheel, and we feel like we're driving, but the track is already bolted to the floor and we can't actually steer off it.
That analogy captures the mechanics of his argument perfectly. Because in a rail shooter, the illusion of control makes the game engaging, but the code only permits one destination.
Right.
And accepting that reality in actual life tends to evoke one of two extreme psychological reactions.
Which are?
Well, for many, it triggers profound terror. The absolute lack of agency over your health, your bank account, and your ultimate legacy goes against every evolutionary survival instinct we possess.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that I can't protect myself or change my circumstances if I just work hard enough is paralyzing.
It is paralyzing.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that terror, and the reaction Jofen is really trying to cultivate in the reader, is an immense, overwhelming sense of relief.
Relief? How is that a relief?
Well, think about it. If you are not actually steering the car, you cannot be blamed for the crash.
Oh, wow.
Right? If your failures, your average salary, and your lack of prestige are simply the role you were assigned in the script, then the crushing burden of personal responsibility just vanishes.
That makes a lot of sense. The modern anxiety of not measuring up to your peers evaporates because you are simply playing your part flawlessly.
Exactly. And that concept of dropping the burden of meritocracy brings us to the most aggressive part of his essay.
Yes, the title itself.
Right. Because if we accept that our roles are locked, we have to look at what happens when society refuses to accept that locked state.
Right, like if you are born as sheep, what happens when a whole culture screams at you to produce milk like a cow?
The author argues that forcing that unnatural state creates a fatal friction. This is the core of pushing people to forge ahead is doing the devil's trick.
He views success culture not just as misguided, but as actively malicious.
Actively malicious, encouraging people to achieve massive wealth, grooming them to climb corporate ladders, or urging them to bring glory to their ancestors is as absurd and as damaging as strapping a hen to a table and trying to teach it to crow like a rooster.
And he uses some genuinely shocking language to drive this home. Like, he compares the pressure of motivational advice to compelling a woman into prostitution.
Yeah, that part is intense.
Very. And the implication there is that forcing someone to violate their innate nature for the sake of societal gain or profit is a profound, non-consensual violation of the soul.
Right.
He claims the hidden, unspoken message behind all ambition is literally, go to your death, work hard to die, look, the grave is not far away, run to it quickly.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
And to ground that dark interpretation in reality, the text cites a pretty grim statistic from the Apple Daily newspaper.
Yeah, the suicide statistic.
Right. It highlights a 5-year period where more than 260 officials and corporate executives ended their own lives.
260.
Yeah. And the essay deliberately lists the methods. Shooting, drowning, jumping off buildings, lying on train rails.
Gosh.
He does it to emphasize the absolute suffocating despair these individuals were experiencing.
I feel like I need to interject here because if I'm listening to this, I'm probably thinking about the fundamental engine of human progress, right? Like, we celebrate people who overcome their circumstances, the drive to improve, to invent medicine, to build better societies. Isn't that all fueled by ambition?
That's the standard counter-argument, yeah.
How can wanting to secure a better future for your family be equated with a literal death sentence?
Well, the author anticipates that exact defensive progress. He uses that statistic of the 260 suicides to turn the concept of progress inside out.
How so?
Because by all of society's metrics, those executives and officials were the absolute winners. They were the peak of progress.
Right.
They achieved the wealth, the status, and the power that everyone is told to chase.
They did everything right. They climbed the mountain.
And look what was waiting for them at the summit.
The trapdoor.
Exactly. The author poses a hypothetical. He says, if those highly successful people were allowed to rewind the clock and choose their path again, fully knowing the despair that awaited them at the height of their success, would they still have worked so tirelessly to get there?
Probably not.
Right. The essay argues that their ambition was a tragic misallocation of energy. They were sheep trying so desperately to produce milk that the biological and psychological strain literally killed them.
Wow. So the pursuit of having more is essentially a trap.
That's his argument.
But, I mean, that leaves a massive vacuum. If wealth, high rank and a network of powerful friends only lead to misery, what actually constitutes a good life in this deterministic universe?
Yeah, people need something to live for.
Exactly. The essay has to offer some alternative, otherwise it's just an incredibly bleak diagnosis of the human condition.
It does offer an alternative, thankfully, and the philosophy leans entirely into the concept of joy through subtraction.
Subtraction.
Yeah. The author asks this series of rhetorical questions like, do you think that the higher an official's rank, the happier they are? Do you think being a board chairman juggling international crises brings joy?
I mean, society says yes.
Right. But he asks, do you think associating with powerful, capable people makes your daily life better? And his answer to all of these is a definitive, uncompromising wrong.
Yeah, he writes, the more you possess, the more troubles and pains you will have. It is a direct attack on the idea that resources equal freedom.
It really is. And to illustrate the sheer absurdity of how we train our children for this pain, he contrasts two very different images of youth.
Oh, this part is so vivid.
It is. He asks the reader to consider who is genuinely happier. Barefoot children covered in mud playing aimlessly in a field, or children who are forced onto a stage in fashionable clothes to practice the piano under intense scrutiny.
Right.
And he emphasizes the suffering of forced study by invoking this really intense Chinese historical idiom.
Oh, yeah. Head tied to a beam and thigh pierced with an awl.
Yes.
For listeners unfamiliar with that imagery, it refers to ancient scholars who were so desperate to pass imperial examinations that they would literally tie their hair to a roof beam so the pain would snap their head up if they nodded off.
Just brutal.
Yeah. Alternatively, they would stab their own legs with a sharp tool to stay awake. So by using that idiom, Shuifeng is comparing modern, forced extracurricular activities, the piano lessons, the advanced tutoring, to a form of self-directed torture.
It perfectly encapsulates his view that forced ambition is inherently agonizing.
Yeah.
And as a counter-narrative, the author shares these vivid anecdotes from his own life where he witnessed what he considers uncorrupted joy.
Right, the travel stories.
Yeah, he describes living in Binka, a region in Zimbabwe he notes was considered highly undeveloped.
The sensory details he uses to paint that Binka scene are really striking. He describes these moonlit nights surrounded by dozens of simple thatched huts.
Yeah.
There are bonfires blazing, young people are beating drums, kids without shoes are jumping and laughing in the dirt, and thin dogs are running around barking at the sparks.
It sounds beautiful.
It does. He states that in that specific moment, observing a community with zero upward mobility and zero wealth, he finally understood the true definition of happiness. It was a complete absence of friction with their environment.
And he reinforces that with another memory from the Pacific Island nation of Vanuatu.
Right.
He observed a primitive tribe where the people spent more than half the year simply sitting in shabby houses with air leaks everywhere or, lying in the shade drinking tea.
It's just existing.
Just existing. They had no bank accounts to monitor, no corporate ladders to climb, and no hustle whatsoever. He challenges the modern reader like, look at their lack of stress and tell me they are not happier than a Wall Street executive.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because to tie all this together, he brings up the classic parable of the rich man and the fisherman.
Ah, yes.
It's a story you often hear in minimalist circles, but it takes on a much sharper edge in the context of the cosmic script.
It really does.
So a wealthy businessman is on vacation at a beautiful seaside resort. He sees a local fisherman who catches just a few fish in the morning and then spends the entire afternoon lying on the bow of his boat, soaking up the sun and playing with his kids.
And the businessman, infected by the hustle mindset, decides to offer the fisherman some unsolicited advice.
Naturally.
Right. He outlines this 10-year plan. Catch more fish, sell the surplus, buy a second boat, eventually build a massive fleet, cut out the middleman, and open a massive fish processing factory.
Yeah, and the fisherman listens to this exhausting 10-year plan and asks, okay, and what would I do after I become a wealthy, stressed-out factory owner?
And the businessman smiles and says, well, then you'd finally have the money to retire, come vacation at the beach, and relax in the sun all afternoon.
And the fisherman just looks at him and replies, what do you think I am doing right now?
It's so good. The parable perfectly exposes the cognitive dissonance of modern ambition. We endure decades of profound anxiety, heart palpitations, and forced labor just to purchase the exact leisure that is naturally available to us for free right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We basically delay our actual lives in the name of preparing for life.
I want to pause and ask you, the person listening right now, to hold that parable up against your own schedule.
That's a tough mirror to look into.
It is.
Yeah.
Are you currently exhausting yourself, putting your body and mind through immense stress just to earn the right to eventually sit in the sun? It's a jarring question to confront when you are, say, stuck in traffic on a Tuesday morning commute.
It forces a massive reckoning with how we structure our time. Because if the author is demanding we abandon this artificial hustle, the obvious question becomes, well, what does a correct, natural life actually look like?
Right. If we aren't supposed to strive, do we just lie on the floor for 80 years?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he actually outlines a very specific rhythm for a natural life, which he estimates at roughly 100 years. It isn't a constant, brutal upward climb. Instead, he sees it as a gentle cycle. In childhood, your only job is to play in the mud.
Makes sense.
In your youth, you chase romance and play around. You go to school when you were young. In your prime, you fall in love and you work. As you get old, you drink tea and chat with neighbors.
It sounds peaceful.
And in your twilight years, your only responsibility is to sit quietly and watch the flowers bloom and fade.
Notice the inclusion of work during the prime years, though. This is a crucial nuance.
Very crucial.
Chevang is not advocating for universal lethargy. The distinction he draws is between internal drive and external pushing.
Yes.
He argues that humans do not need to be instigated. If someone has a natural affinity for engineering, they will obsess over technology without a boss yelling at them. If someone loves to organize, they will naturally lead.
Right. The text is very clear on this. A worker will naturally work. Someone with a dominant personality will feel uneasy just taking orders and will organically become a boss. A thief is going to steal, which he dryly notes makes moralizing lectures totally useless.
That part made me laugh.
Yeah, and someone whose script dictates they are a saint will naturally seek universal truth. You don't have to coerce anyone. Their innate programming just executes.
Which brings us to the most fascinating piece of context for this entire deep dive, the author's own life.
Oh, this is the best part.
Why is Shufeng so vehemently opposed to success culture? Because this philosophy was born out of a very specific trauma. 20 years prior to writing this essay, he read Napoleon Hill's famous book, The Complete Book of Success.
Wow.
Yeah, that book is practically the Bible of the American dream and modern self-help. It's all about manifesting wealth through sheer willpower.
He absorbed that book and became intensely ambitious. He set out to earn a massive fortune. But because he was forcing a path that perhaps wasn't his nature, his greed led him to be deceived.
He got scammed.
He got severely scammed. He was defrauded out of more than 400,000 RMB.
And we really need to put that number in context. In China, a couple of decades ago, 400,000 RMB was an absolute life-altering fortune.
Huge money.
We are talking about the kind of money that could buy a house or set a family up for a lifetime. Losing that wasn't just a bad investment, it was apocalyptic financial ruin.
And the sheer scale of that betrayal fundamentally shattered his worldview. He writes that from the moment he lost everything, he developed a deep hatred for the concept of success.
With a capital S.
Yes.
Yeah.
That trauma catalyzed a 20-year period of intense philosophical study, culminating in his absolute conviction that prompting people to forge ahead is a trick played by the devil to ruin lives.
But wait, we have to address the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
The author details his daily life in the essay. He says he writes articles day and night, pouring all of his energy into creating what he calls Lifechanyuan and Chanyuan homes.
Right.
For context, Lifechanyuan is essentially a sprawling utopian communal living experiment he founded. It's a massive logistical and ideological undertaking.
It is a huge project.
So, how is dedicating your life to building a philosophical commune not a prime example of massive ambition?
It is the ultimate paradox of the text. He is preaching radical acceptance while working like a madman to build a movement.
Yeah, exactly.
But the author actually anticipates this critique. He acknowledges that observers will look at his output and ask, aren't you working hard? Aren't you striving? His defense hinges entirely on the source of the motivation.
So how does he separate his hard work from the hustle culture he despises?
He claims he works day and night solely because he loves it. There is zero external pressure. No manager is demanding a quota, and no societal expectation is forcing him to type.
Okay.
It is simply his innate nature expressing itself. He notes that if someone were to actually approach him and command him to work hard, he would instantly rebel and shout, "Go to hell, you better."
Go to hell, you a better. That is such a fantastic, visceral response.
It really is. And he defends his frantic productivity with one final brilliant nature analogy.
Oh, the hen.
The hen. He asks, can a hen lay eggs if she has none in her belly? If she has eggs in her belly, can she not lay them?
Wow.
He views his endless writing and community building not as ambition, but as a biological imperative. He is simply a hen full of eggs. He cannot help but lay them. It's not a hustle.
Yeah.
It's just the script playing out its inevitable code.
That is an incredibly powerful image to leave off on because it really forces you to audit your own life. Like, what are your eggs?
Right.
Are the goals you're agonizing over right now innate to your nature? Are you doing the work because you genuinely cannot help but express it, like that hen?
Or are you a sheep?
Yeah, are you a sheep running yourself into an early grave, desperately trying to produce milk because a self-help book or a boss or an algorithm convinced you that producing milk is the only valid measure of a human life?
So what does this all mean? Ultimately, whether you buy into Zhui Feng's premise of a rigidly coded universe or completely reject it, the value of this deep dive lies in the radical permission it offers.
Permission to let go.
Yes. It provides a framework to decouple your self-worth from your economic output. It invites you to consider that endlessly fighting your fundamental nature is not heroic, it is a tragedy.
It really takes the formula of cause and effect that we are all chained to and exposes how brittle it might actually be. It's a reminder that maybe the track is already laid down and we can finally just look out the window and enjoy the scenery.
Beautifully said.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on. We've spent this time exploring the cosmic script and the idea that absolutely everything, from the trajectory of nations to the smallest mundane moments, is completely predetermined by a locked code.
Yep.
If that theory is actually the reality of our universe, does that mean your decision to listen to this exact deep dive today was already written into the code?
Oh, mind-blowing.
Were you always destined to hear this specific message right now in this exact moment of your commute or your workday to finally give yourself permission to step off the conveyor belt?
That's a lot to think about.
Think about that the next time you find yourself trying to force a cabbage to become a lettuce. Thanks for joining us on this exploration. We'll be back next time to unpack another deep dive together. Keep questioning the script.